says it's loading.
Why don't you mute us?
Okay, let's see it.
Do it, please.
Yay.
All right, are you ready for me to put this on live page? Or
So you can talk, you're not on live anywhere. He's gonna key it to go live right at 2. But we do have a lot of people in the waiting room if you want to start letting people in.
Well, why don't we do that?
Okay. Can you go ahead? I have one more poll to type.
Recording in progress.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Mark. How are you?
I'm doing great.
So glad to hear that and to see you.
Buon Natale, especially Shriat.
Well, since there's only a few of us, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to see all of your faces.
Oh, yeah. A great seminar this morning.
Thank you. I thought so as well.
Yeah, I thought it worked out well, really. So,
And
Yeah.
amazing speakers.
yes, yeah. Got me thinking, so, which was good.
Yes.
I don't know, should we be on mute for most of the meeting? Probably.
Yes, but we haven't started the meeting yet. So if you would like to chit chat for another 6 minutes or so, you're all welcome to. I know we like to do that at the beginning of the assembly or before we begin the assembly.
Or we get our coffee in the back, one of the two. So,
And a snack.
absolutely.
Good afternoon, Madam President.
Good afternoon.
Hello,
Good
Justice
afternoon,
Burke.
Chief Justice.
Yes. Good afternoon, Your Honor.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for including me. Hi, Mary. I
Always
haven't
our
seen you.
pleasure.
I know,
I haven't seen you for a while.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm about to send you an email actually about some mental health stuff. So
Okay, well, I'll wait for that. I see my professor, I see Bob, it's everybody else. Nice, good.
Good to be here.
So. Michael, congratulations again. Michael received an award from the Illinois Judges Association.
Thank you very much, Chief Justice Burke.
Oh, nice.
Yes, congratulations.
Mhm.
Thank you, Madam President.
And I thought Justice Tice's remarks were so appropriate, and especially when she talked about the work of the judges and attorneys being essential, everything that we do being essential. That really resonated with me.
Well,
Yes. I wish the other two branches of government would think we were essential workers too.
Hello, Justice Carmeier.
Oh, I didn't see you.
Hello.
Hello, hi, how are you?
Hello, Chief. How are you?
Missing you.
Yeah,
You're
I miss
probably
all of
spending
you.
a lot of time in Florida.
Well, not as much as I would like to, but planning on going back.
Good, good for you.
For anyone that doesn't know, my dad has an uncanny resemblance to Justice Carmeier. So whenever he's in a meeting, I always have to check, is it Justice Carmeier or my dad?
You might need to share a photo, Mark.
Right.
Who said that?
Mark Wojcik.
Ah,
Mark,
okay.
have you ever found any extra people at Thanksgiving dinner?
Dennis, I'm sorry, I missed your call.
That's quite all right. I know you had a busy day. I tried to call you right after the IJA program closed out, but maybe a little later this afternoon, we'll get a
Right,
chance to catch up.
it's Friday afternoon.
It is our Friday afternoon designated time.
Give it George Stewart in the house.
Hey, Mark, how are you? In the
Good.
house indeed. Afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Ava.
Afternoon.
Chief Justice, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
Ava, we missed you at our Board of Governors meeting yesterday. You must have got stuck in court.
I did. There were little fires everywhere.
It happens.
That
Just
time
call
of the
me
year.
a firefighter.
Mhm.
Yes. I know about representing firefighters.
I know you do.
You were a tier 1 employee, and you stay that, and you can move around from any
You
other
might want to mute
job,
yourself,
any other job,
whoever's on a
except
phone
that you became
call.
a judge after 2011, or joined the General Assembly. You were a tier 2.
There we go.
Go on. I'm going into the 2 o'clock Zoom.
Steve, we can hear your call.
You know, lawyers and their use of technology.
I have a bar association meeting that's starting right now.
Lori, we can hear
I
you.
wanted to make sure I signed on. Yeah, but.
Lori.
And DCFS issues, yes. So, at any rate,
Lori, we can hear
Lori.
your phone call. You want to make sure you're not discussing anything confidential.
no, I don't. No, I do not.
Why don't you have Kim? Kim, can you mute
I
her?
don't know where you got
Kim,
that.
would you
yeah.
mind muting Lori Levin?
Oops, I'm sorry. Hold on.
There you
Somebody
go.
just-
It wouldn't be a Zoom meeting if something like that didn't happen.
No, it would not, but it always has me on edge, just in case we hear something we shouldn't.
I'm surprised they don't bury lawyers with a telephone in their hand instead of a rosary.
Oh, at least there are no cats. There are no cats. There are no cats present on the screen.
Hi, Justice Burke. I see Justice Burke is joining us. I
Hi,
haven't seen
Tim.
you
How
in a
are you?
long time. Fine, thanks. How are you? Happy
Great.
holidays. And happy holidays to everybody.
The fire extinguisher, the burn goes everywhere.
How do I get on here?
Look down below.
Who's
Sharon,
upside
I
down?
can Sharon,
You're
just
upside down.
Sharon, you're upside down.
Holy mackerel.
I'm upside down. I was upside down for my whole real estate meeting
Just take your camera and flip it. Is it a camera on top of your computer? Just flip it the other way.
Sharon's upside down.
Thanks,
Sharon's
Pamela.
upside down.
No problem.
Try turning.
Hey, Noel.
Well, maybe you're all upside down and I'm the
That's right. She's
You're
got a
right
point.
side up. You're absolutely right.
She
Sharon.
might be right.
That's it.
One of the nice things about Zoom is I can see the front of everyone's heads instead of just the backs.
very
Oh,
true.
well spotted observation.
Very good. Yeah.
I got to get closer to this.
Hi,
Well,
Bob. You're ready? You're not in Italy, I see.
Good to see you. Thanks.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us for our mid-year meeting and our assembly meeting. It is my pleasure to serve as your 145th president and to call this meeting to order. We will begin with a report of the secretary, and I would like to call on Heather McPherson, please.
Good afternoon, members of the Assembly. The notice of the meeting and the agenda were timely distributed in accordance with the Assembly rules. Before we begin, we have a few reminders as to our rules of procedure. First, all persons presenting are reminded to be mindful of the time constraints we have today. Members of the Assembly are strongly encouraged to be concise and non-repetitive when engaging in discussion and debate. When you wish to be recognized to speak on an issue, use the Zoom raise hand feature, and then when recognized, state your name and your circuit, please. A motion to table is not in order until presentation is fully completed. Attendance will be recorded by the Zoom registration reports. Madam President, we do have a quorum present for this meeting. At this time, I'd like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of our June 2021 meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. And if I could ask you to vote to approve by raising your raised hand feature at this time. Thank you.
Where is the raise hand feature?
There we go.
Under reactions.
Yeah.
The bottom of your screen, reactions.
Ah, thank you.
Click on it and then it says raise hand and different things.
Got it. Thanks.
Thank you all. If I could now ask you to lower your hands in your raised hand feature. And once you do, for those who are opposed to the motion, if you could please vote. And we will give you a minute to do that.
Laura, ask Tiffany to come in here a minute.
Thank you. And now if you are abstaining from this vote, if you could please raise your raise hand feature. Thank you. Motion carries. Now on to report of the Agenda and Program Committee, and I would like to call on Michael Bergman, Chair of the Assembly Agenda and Program Committee.
Thank you, Madam President, and good afternoon. It is my pleasure to serve as Chair of the Assembly Agenda and Program Committee. The purpose of the committee is to develop the agenda for each of the Assembly meetings of the ISBA Assembly. We monitor ISBA governance for issues which properly come before the Assembly. We review board agendas and attend board meetings for items to be included on the Assembly agenda. 45 days prior to each Assembly meeting, we meet and work with the staff to prepare a preliminary agenda for circulation to the Assembly. It has been my pleasure to serve on the committee last year and this year as its chair, and I can tell you that the role of the committee is incredibly important in ensuring an effective, informative, and productive Assembly meeting. There are regular opportunities to serve on the committee, and at the Assembly meeting, at the annual meeting in June, we will be selecting new members to serve on the committee in the future. I'd like to thank our current members of the committee, in addition to myself, Kaylin Huber, Stacy McCullough, Judge Andrea Schleifer, and Jennifer Shaw. I'd also like to thank the staff who support the committee, Kim Weaver, Bob Craighead, and Charlie Northrup. I now move the adoption of the December 10, 2021 agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. If I could ask you to please raise the hand feature if you are voting in support of this motion. Thank you. If I could ask you to lower your raise hand feature, and if you are voting no on the motion, please vote now.
Very smart, but she has a lot of questions.
Someone's phone call is being.
Sorry, not a motion to dismiss rather than just rolling on the brakes.
Excuse me, whoever is on the phone, we can hear your phone call. So please mute either our meeting or ensure that we're not hearing something that you intend to remain confidential. Thank you everyone for the vote. Motion carries. Now on to report of the president, but before I make my remarks, I would like to invite Chief Justice Ann Burke of the Illinois Supreme Court to make her remarks to our assembly. Chief Justice Burke.
Well, thank you, President Krolowska, Anna for sure, for that very kind introduction. It's truly my pleasure and honor to be with you all today at the State Bar Association's annual end of the year assembly meeting. Thank you for inviting me to share a few words. I was asked to speak about my listening tour and a few other things. And so I will begin by thanking my colleagues on the Illinois Supreme Court. I wish to convey our sincere gratitude to the ISBA, to the president, the 145th president, and all of the ISBA members and staff for everything you have done, and all of the ISBA members since 1877 and continue to do. I don't mean that all of you here has been doing it since 1877. Don't get that wrong. But what you continue to do to assist the court in ensuring that the legal needs of the people of the state of Illinois are being met. The ISBA and its members have always been extremely generous in giving their time and your talent to partner with the court and in its many endeavors. This has been particularly true with regard to the listening tour, which some of you have heard about, most of you, I'm sure. And so when I first became the Chief Justice at the end of 2019, following my dear friend Lloyd Carmeyer, which is not an easy job to do to begin with, I was intending to travel the state and meet with the local judges and court personnel in all the stakeholders in the 23 judicial circuits of our 5 judicial districts. I envisioned the sessions would be a forum where the court could listen and learn what's working and what isn't working in the local court systems. And the ISBA president then, David Sawson, volunteered to sponsor these sessions. And of course, before we could begin the in-tour listening tour, the health threat due to COVID-19 made such gatherings impossible. However, steps in without agreeing to do it in the first place was Dennis Orsi. So thank you, Dennis, for permitting the listening tours to continue. And that with all the things that we were able to do and go around the state and the things we learned, and provide a venue for the court to convey information and learn about problems in the rural areas of the state. And I must also congratulate you, Dennis, and the ISBA on your rural lawyer initiative. It's been extremely successful, and I know that it'll continue on and is something that's really been needed. Also in 2021, we had all hoped that the introduction of COVID vaccines would have abated by now, but that didn't come to pass. Nonetheless, with the safety measures in place, we are able to return to our courtrooms for trials and increase the number and use the technology that we learned during the COVID times. But that's one thing I really wanted to say. Technology has permitted us to navigate with the new challenges which we were presented with. And we also realized that the usefulness of the listening tours as a communications tool during that time. And as a result, our court and the administrative offices, in conjunction with you, continue to hold the remainder of the tours on into 2021. In addition, as I said, Dennis Orsi still assists the court in its efforts in addressing some significant logistical challenges resulting from the Judicial Redistricting Act of 2021, which has been quite a challenge. And that act, which was signed into law by Governor Pritzker on June 4th, drastically changes the boundaries of our judicial district. We did enter a pause order, as you well know. However, just this week, we are lifting the pause order to begin the judicial redistricting January 1st with the new map. And moving forward, we want to, Dennis is still not off the hook yet. Moving forward, he has to continue help in making sure it's implemented in the number of phases. So in closing, just let me say this. If COVID ever taught us anything, it is that justice is not a place. It is truly a service. My colleagues on the Supreme Court and I wish to express to you our deep appreciation for your partnerships and that we've had enjoyed with the ISBA, not only for the listening tours, but for the decades and decades that the Illinois State Bar Association has worked in collaboration with the Supreme Court in service to the people of state of Illinois. So I wish you all a wonderful holiday and many blessings to you and your families through the season and in 2022. Thank you for letting me say a few words.
Thank you, Chief Justice Burke. And we at the ISBA very much appreciate the partnership between the ISBA and the Illinois Supreme Court. Thank you. Now, before we move on to the President's report, if I could ask everyone to please turn on your camera so we can take a few photos to memorialize this event today. Thank you, everyone. On to the President's report. I am truly pleased to see all of you, and I hope that everyone is doing well. Best wishes for a joyous and safe and happy holiday season to you and your families. I would like to take some time today to talk about 1, health and safety of our members and staff, 2, the virtual ISBA world, 3, programming designed to help members in these challenging times, 4, our commitment to the profession, and 5, fun things on the horizon. There is no question that the pandemic continues to overshadow our plans and programming as we strive to continue to serve our members in these unique and challenging times. Our guiding principle remains the health and safety of our members, and that is at the forefront of our decisions. Yes, I can tell you that as president of the association, I am disappointed we are not together in person, especially at this time of the year. But we must use caution as we navigate these waters. I am gratified, however, that we continue to provide full and meaningful services to the membership that have positive impact on their daily practices, whether it's legal information through Eclipse, section newsletters, the Bar Journal, or representing their interests before the court and the General Assembly. I am also encouraged that the profession and the association too have stepped up by embracing new ways of doing business for the betterment of the courts, the profession, and the public. As you know, we decided to conduct the mid-year meeting on a virtual basis. This decision was based on an abundance of caution and the results of a members' survey, where we recognized that an overwhelming majority of our members were not planning to attend the mid-year meeting in person with the current health and safety mandates in place. Working with the IJA, we put together some good programming for this meeting. I hope all of you attended the Rooting Out Racial Bias program this morning. We anticipate additional programming for the coming months, but more on that later. As you might be aware, the ISBA has also postponed to May 2022 the member appreciation and recognition receptions that we previously scheduled for this past fall. We will continue to closely monitor developments. Now, holding business by Zoom has continued to receive generally broad support. Zoom meetings have proven to be time savers and have produced significantly better attendance and participation. This is one of the lessons that we have learned from the pandemic, and I hope that we will continue, as many of our courts have, to recognize the benefit of remote operations in appropriate instances. Zoom has also allowed us to better communicate with section and committee leaders. We have continued to bring those leaders together for short and informative meetings so that they are current on the issues affecting them and you. Consistent with our commitment to being relevant, excuse me, and against the backdrop of the continued pandemic, we are continuing to offer programs that are designed to help members practice law better using sound business practices and to help them deal with life work challenges they confront. We have already presented 2 programs as part of the Business Institute series. Our goal is to provide guidance to members on a regular basis about how to run an efficient and productive law office. In place of the postponed fall member appreciation receptions, we provided a free program on life-work balance presented by Deborah Epstein Henry, a nationally recognized lawyer speaker on this topic. Other programming is being planned. We are interested in helping members develop their practices too. ISBA has continued to offer ways to connect potential clients and members. First, our vendor partner for Illinois Lawyer Finder online member directory has recently redesigned their platform to make it more visually appealing and easy to use for both members and the public looking for attorneys. Next, the phone referral component of the Illinois Lawyer Finder connects consumers looking for legal help to ISBA lawyers. We have recently added staff to ensure continued full-time coverage and begun soliciting lawyers to participate in those areas where the public need for legal services appears greatest. Additionally, we will soon be rolling out a series of radio ads on WGN Radio to promote both our online member directory and the phone referral service. If you are not already participating in these programs, I encourage you to take a look at them. Now on to Supreme Court Rules 8.4 and 5.1. As I am sure many of you are aware, the board's scope committee has been working on proposed amendments to the rules of professional conduct that address discrimination and harassment in our profession with the critical assistance of the Standing Committee on Professional Conduct. As many of you who serve on section councils know, a new version of the proposed amendments is circulating with section councils and committees for comment. I and our ISBA vice presidents appreciate all of the hard work and serious discussion our section councils and committee members are giving to these proposals. Once comments are received, they will be reviewed by the scope committee and the board in the spring. And it is possible that a proposal will be presented to the assembly in June. If you or your section council or committee have not yet commented, please make sure to do so by January 21st, 2022. On to diversity, equity, and inclusion. As previously reported, ISBA has retained the services of two very well-qualified consultants to work with ISBA leadership to assess, strategize, and develop implementation plans for an even more diverse and inclusive ISBA. Professor Kimberly Norwood and Dr. Richard Harvey of Washington University in St. Louis are working with us. Given the importance of this project, all of the vice presidents and myself will be helping to coordinate this effort. We expect to complete the assessment part of this project by the end of February. The assessment is intended to be transparent and thorough. We are planning some form of a virtual forum to keep the membership apprised of this important work, probably in March of 2022. And a special thank you to the Steering Committee on Racial Inequality and the Diversity Leadership Council for all that they are doing. As far as IBF, as you probably know, the IBF Gala has been postponed until May 2022. The IBF is also planning a gala with a twist for October 2022. You will be hearing from Lisa Newley, IBF president, today about more about changes to the IBF. Please give Lisa's remarks your thoughtful consideration. As far as ISBA elections, our ISBA election season began October 1st. The Diversity Leadership Council presented a special program on September 20th called Moving Up in the ISBA Women in Leadership Roles. A second program for all members interested in running for ISBA elected office was held on October 20th, where attendees heard the thoughts and ruminations of past presidents Paula Holderman and Judge Vincent Cornelius, as well as board member Tamika Walker. Both programs can be accessed on the elections page on the ISBA website. The Bar Election Supervision Committee will be scheduling several candidate forums for third vice president and board candidates after the contested races are finalized following the petition deadline. In addition, we will be inviting the announced third VP candidates to make brief remarks today towards the end of my president's report. As you are seeing in the chat box, we have placed a link to the elections page where you can find the nominating petitions for all of the candidates, whether that's third VP, board, or assembly. Now on to some fun things. We know that members like to get together to network and share. We are planning a celebration of ISBA's 145th birthday in January with several activities focusing on members. There will be contests, prizes, and some wellness programming. We are also looking forward to the rescheduled member appreciation receptions this spring, one in the Chicago suburbs and another in Springfield. And you will have the chance to welcome Rory Weiler as the next president at the in-person annual meeting at the Grand Geneva Resort in Wisconsin on June 9th through 11th, 2022. But as point of information, I'm not quite finished yet. Even though we are still dealing with the pandemic, it has been a busy year. Thank you, members of the Assembly, for your contributions to our work. And now, on to the presentations from our announced candidates for third vice president. We will begin with.
This is what you have to do for assembly.
Excuse me, we're hearing your phone call. So if you could please mute yourself. Thank you. Please mute. Thank you. Now on to an introduction of our candidates for ISBA third vice president. We will ask them to make remarks in alphabetical order based on their last names, and I would ask them to limit their comments to 2 to 3 minutes. So we will begin with Bridget Dignan and then proceed to Ava George Stewart, followed by E. Kenneth Wright. And thank you all for your attention. Bridget?
Thank you, Madam President. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Bridget Dignan, and I'm running for third vice president of the ISBA. I have been very active for the past 14 years with the ISBA, and all of that started when I was elected to the Assembly in 2008. I went on to serve 2 terms on the Assembly. I was elected to serve on the under 37 seat for the Board of Governors, and then I served 2 additional terms on the Board of Governors, during which time I also served as treasurer and as secretary. I currently chair the Tort Section Council. I am the secretary of LawPAC. I serve on the legislative, investment, and membership committees. During the past 14 years, I've had the opportunity to work with and get to know our members and their needs through my work with the various section councils and committees. I'm also very active in the Illinois Bar Foundation, where I sit on the board of directors. I serve as vice chair of our Champions program, which formerly was known as our Fellows program, and I chair Lawyers Care Committee. Volunteering and being a part of this organization is so important to me because I believe that the work being conducted by our section councils and our committees and the resources that are available to us through the ISBA make us better, more productive attorneys. And it's not lost on me that the ISBA is the only association in the state that represents attorneys regardless of the geographical location, area of practice, race, gender, or ethnicity. So first, I want to thank you for your time, talent, and treasure. The success of the ISBA is measured by the commitment of our members. So thank you. So a little bit about me. I'm a practicing lawyer, an owner and operator of my law firm, a mother of 3 small children. I am all too familiar with the challenges of practicing law and running a law firm in today's climate. And I am prepared and committed to leading the ISBA into a future that accommodates each and every one of us and the needs of our clients. This bar association is in a unique position to serve as the #1 resource for law firms and the courts while we continue to adapt to the new normal. The ISBA should continue to be a reliable clearinghouse related to court function, a one-stop shop. The ISBA must be a leader among bar associations for effective work-life balances, both for men and for women, and technological innovation so that we can be productive and our law firms can thrive financially. Finally, I have a couple other things, but we also have to address law school debt so that young lawyers can continue to join the profession. The Rural Practice Initiative has to remain a priority so that we can address the needs of our members who practice in underserved areas. The Assembly should be a place where we learn about each other, what's working, what's not in our various circuits. and how the ISBA can be of assistance. Finally, and importantly, all of what we do has to be with an eye towards promoting women in the workplace, diversity in the workplace, and inclusiveness. I have a record working in all of these areas and doing great things with our members. So I ask for your support. Also, as you can see, we cannot pass our clipboards around. So when you have a free moment, if you could jump on to the link that Melissa had posted into the chat and sign all of our petitions. We are stronger as a bar organization when we have a robust election. So thank you so much for your time and your support.
Thank you, Bridget. Ava?
Hello, it's so good to see all of you in these little itty bitty boxes, and it's just not the way we all thought it would be. And I can recall thinking we would all be together in one room, but we're not. But the big news is we're still all together, and that's what I want for all of us. I'm running, and someone asked me why I was running, because I want lawyers to flourish. We have already shown our abilities. We might be late to adapt to technology, but we become robust, more efficient, and more effective. That's the high note for what we've learned during this new era ushered in by the pandemic. My name is Ava George Stewart. I know a lot of you know me, but I know we've got a lot of members on live stream. Another historic opportunity for all of our members, whether they're in Illinois today, whether they're working outside of the country today, wherever they are in the universe or world, to be with us and witness this. And for that, I thank Madam President, and I thank the folks at ISBA for being nimble and focus on connecting the lawyers. I ask for your endorsement, your assistance, your volunteer efforts, and yes, your vote. I was asked why, and I'm gonna read you what I said. This was a conversation because we're all going through this pandemic, so time becomes kind of fluid. And so I was asked a question late at night by a member of the ISBA. And I responded by text to their question because it was very early in the wee hours. I'm running for ISBA third vice president because I want lawyers to flourish across discipline and practice. We carry the weight of the world on our backs. It's breaking a lot of us. Some of us are flourishing during this time. I've spoken to many of us who this is the best time ever in the history of our practice. But I've also spoken to so many of us who are struggling through all of these massive changes in our personal lives, our professional lives, our ability to connect and serve our clients, wondering about our place in the world as individuals, as daughters, sisters, husbands, wives, brothers, sisters, friends, and colleagues. How do we help each other? How do we help our clients? We're doing it, but we got to bring everyone along. I'm interested in particular in highlighting career enhancement for our members. Doesn't matter if they're just starting and they're brand new lawyers or still in law school, looking to wrap up their law school years, successfully take the bar exam and join us, or if they're mid-career practitioners. And for so many of us, we took turns and we made changes right now during this time. We thought about what was important to us, our priorities shifted, and we made adjustments and allowances. Some of us opened practices, some of us closed practices, some of us joined government, some of us decided we were going to just do something altogether different. And a lot of us just said, I'm taking a break. This is the sabbatical I need to figure out what I want to do. Finally, there are those of us who are seasoned practitioners, and we're looking at what next. How do we continue our practices? Perhaps we're ready to wind down our practices and make some succession planning. Additionally, we gotta address, finally, the elephant in the room, and that's mitigating the crippling multi-decade student debt burden. We can do it together. We're smart people, but it's time to start saying this is a problem. It's time for our members who are struggling to stop feeling shame about this debt. It's time for us to solve it. The ISBA is best positioned to help our members solve it. Join me, in the words of the great Daniel Burnham, in making no little plans. I ask for your vote and your support. Be well.
Thank you, Eva. And now on to E. Kenneth Wright.
Thank you, President Carla Kosker.
You're welcome.
And to Chief Justice Burke, if she's still here, to the vice presidents, the Board of Governor members, the assembly members, and the candidates. I appreciate everything I've heard. And I know whomever's successful in this race will add value to the ISBA. I have been an ISBA member a long time and participated in so many things. If I go back to the presidents in which I became a member, it'll be way back. I know that bar associations have three main functions. One is to serve the membership. Another is to serve the bench, and the other last one is to serve the community. If we, the members, serve the community and the bench, then we can serve ourselves. We're here to make a living. We want to make a good living. And one way to do that is to protect the bench and the community. The things in which I've heard have all been good, and I would promote, support each of them. Saying is a little bit different than doing. I have been in positions to have done many of the things in which we just enumerated. I have been president of a major bar association. I have been treasurer of a major bar association. I've been on a board of a major bar association. I have been president of CCR association that work hand in hand with the bar associations. I'm a platinum member of the foundation. I believe in service, leadership, service. We have to come together. We can do it all, but we can't do it all singly. It takes us all to do this. I believe that I, most of all, can bring us together. I've done these things at one time or another. I believe that in the bench, for example, every organization have changed their hours of work except the courts. The court is still from 9 to 4, and sometimes longer when we have trials, but generally those are hours. Our banking hours have changed. Our churches have changed their hours so we can do business at different times. I have set up what I call the flex hours for our courts, the 8 o'clock and 5 o'clock. And I think there ought to be flex hours where lawyers, judges, litigants can agree to a voluntary time in which they might want to have their cases heard. Since we're now hearing them virtually, many things, everything except trials, we're hearing virtually. And we can do this. If a judge decide and clients decide they want to hear a matter at Sunday morning at 7 o'clock in the morning before church. If it's a motion by, they can, if they agree, they can do that. Nothing mandatory, but voluntarily. I think there ought to be a volunteer hotline for solo and small firms, so they can call this line to discuss a case or issue when they don't have members of their firm or parties to discuss that case with a professional who knows more about that case than they would know themselves. I think we ought to tell the community what it is we're doing for them. Everything that takes place good in this world takes place through lawyers. We don't tell our story to them. We have to change the attitude people have of lawyers, judges. They think we're just people who want either money or we're corrupt. We have to change that, and we can change it. I need your help. I can't get this done by myself, as I've tried many times to do different things, but finding out, as I've watched ants as they work. One day I was working and I saw the ants trying to move a piece of bread as I mowed the lawn. The one ant went someplace, came back with hundreds of ants, and they were able to move that piece of bread. We can move this organization. It's a great organization, the greatest one that I've experienced, because it hasn't lost its way during the pandemic, as many have done. I won't go more into that because you can find that out by looking at my page. But I do want to tell you that I'm on diversity committee. First, let me go back and tell you, I was raised in a family with 10 sisters, a mother and a father, and 2 grandmothers. I know who's boss. I know where the smartness comes from. My mother and my sisters, one would tell me constantly that she's smarter than I am. Well, it didn't take much to do that, but she would say that often. I need your help in order to be third vice president. And I appreciate all you do, and I hope that those who support me and those who do not, they will sign all of our petitions, because we need to get on the ballot. Some have said to me, I'll vote for you, but if I don't get on the ballot, you won't have anything to vote for. Madam President, I thank you for your time.
You're welcome. And thank you, sir. Again, as a reminder, folks, there's a link in the chat that will take you to the elections page. So please take a look at that. And best of luck to all of our candidates. Now on to agenda item 6, and that is legislation. I would like to announce my law pack appointments, and I would then ask for your confirmation, which will require a motion. Those appointments are Kelly Gordon of Springfield, who would be appointed to her first term, and Bridget Dignan of Chicago would be reappointed for a second term. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. A motion has been made and seconded, and we will share a poll with you and request your vote. Please vote now. And we can hear you, whoever's whispering, so you might want to mute our Zoom chat. If you have not yet cast your vote, please do so now. You have a few seconds remaining. Please cast your vote. Thank you. Give us a moment, please, to tally the results. Motion carries. Thank you. On to agenda item 7. And I would like to invite Dr. Mary Milano and Kenya Jenkins-Wright, co-chairs of the Steering Committee on Racial Inequality, to report on the activities of the committee. Dr. Milano and Ms. Jenkins-Wright.
Thank you. I think we're going to go ahead and start with a legislative subcommittee report. Just so people know, the steering committee has 3 subcommittees: the legislative subcommittee, the education subcommittee, and the diversity subcommittee. We're going to focus more so on the legislative subcommittee and the education subcommittee, as President Krolakowska noted many of the diversity efforts that the ISBA and ISBA leadership is doing on the diversity front. So I will now turn it over to Dr. Mary Milano to discuss legislative subcommittee. Doctor?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kenya. Thank you, President Krolakowska. We'll be brief because we are aware of the time constraints on this meeting. We recently conducted a meeting with Senator Sims, with whom and Director Jim Covington, I'm sorry, with whom we all worked last year's legislative session to try to assess the next steps regarding the Safety Act and future initiatives involving criminal justice reform and the administration of justice. Those efforts are ongoing, and although this particular session of the legislature will have a number of issues that are at the forefront, these are not forgotten and will also be working in conjunction with related initiatives for the benefit of the entire population of the state. We also have hired a legislative intern to help research potential proposals. It's Michelle Lewis from UIC School of Law, who has an extraordinarily impressive background and will bring, I think, needed support to the committee and the committee in turn to the legislature. So we'd like to thank Jim and Melissa both for their efforts in orchestrating and bringing to completion that particular effort. We are also supporting House Bill 2542, which removes the bar for name changes and brings the law in line with the majority of other states to help trans and gender expansive people and survivors of human trafficking live safer and more authentic lives. There are a number of issues that are up. It seems that each time we uncover something, a number of other issues disclose themselves. Among them are seeking judicial discretion exception for people seeking a name change due to gender-related identity, marriage, religion, or status as a trafficker. The lifetime ban for people with identity theft convictions, and removing the 10-year waiting period for people with felony convictions. We're also looking at some issues that are less obvious. One of those that has received some attention in the press recently, but which has quite a bit of work to do on it, is the issue of discrimination in valuation and appraisals of houses and properties. Something that until fairly recently, I thought we had disposed of much earlier in certainly my lifetime and career, but have not. Along with that really is discriminatory practices in the ability to obtain loans. There are a variety of issues that the Legislative Committee will be looking at, particularly as some are raised in this upcoming session. We, of course, invite the collaboration and proposals from any of the section councils, and also remind folks that there will be new committee appointments coming up. And this is another opportunity for people to broaden the scope of this committee and of their own engagement in the ISBA. And with that, I'll turn it over to Kenya.
Thank you so much, Dr. Milano. As stated, I will be discussing the Education Subcommittee, which is now being chaired by Jessica Schneider, who is a managing attorney at Pilley. So we would like to thank Jessica for taking on these extra endeavors. We plan to create videos for the public to inform them of their rights in various areas. For example, the Education Subcommittee has put together various resources regarding the rights of those in nursing homes and the fact that disparities exist on how people are treated depending on their demographics. The Education Subcommittee will be creating short videos, approximately 2 to 3 minutes, educating families on the rights so they can access information and resources. The Educational Subcommittee also plans to look at real estate tax issues and how they affect the elderly and people of color in order to create educational videos. The steering committee partnered with the ISBA, with other ISBA committees to put on racial equity related CLE programming, including with the Human Rights Committee on Qualified Immunity, and there will likely be some follow-up sessions on that issue. The committee is working on a CLE about the removal of juveniles to adult court and the disparate impact on students of color. We're also planning an educational seminar on the school to prison pipeline and its disparate impact on students of color as well. The steering committee, education subcommittee, and legislative committee subcommittee are making plans to partner on public education around the legislative efforts that Dr. Milano recently discussed. And we are very interested in learning any new recommendations for educational videos that we believe can, primarily educate the public and help move forward many of the efforts of the steering committee. And with that, I will turn it back over to Madam President Kralakowska. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jenkins-Wright and Dr. Milano. At this point, I would like to take us back to agenda item 6 and call on Jim Covington for presentation of the legislative package.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We have got 5 bills to put in the pipeline for next year. There are 2 bills left over from last year that neither one of them had anyone opposed to them. One was the creation of special warranty deeds that everybody just loved. It was on the agreed bill in the Senate. It was going on the House agreed bill list, and then mysteriously it got sent to House Rules for reasons that I can't find out. And then there's a bill in the appeal process of state and local taxation that I didn't think anyone had any problem with either. That the 2 bills that were the Assembly, you all have already approved both those bills last year, so we'll try to rerun those. We put 8 bills on the governor's desk and he signed them, so we had a very good year. One in particular was the statute of repose, where we sort of made it more level with the estate planners with all other attorneys' statute of repose. That only took me 25 years to get done, but better late than never. To run through the 5 bills, I do want to give you some context. I think this is going to be a abbreviated, condensed session. Instead of the usual mid to late March primary, we have a late June primary. The Senate and House calendars, they're going to take off pretty quickly in January. Years past, they always didn't take off quickly until after the primary. So they're going to take off quickly, and then they have an adjournment date of April 8th, and usually that's May 31st. And the word everybody is getting, both publicly and privately, is this is a session where they want happy bills. Any bill that's got is considered controversial or has opponents or has problems is going to be in trouble. It's going to be happy bills. I know what's defined as controversial changes from time to time, but that's a context there. So I'm not particularly unhappy that we're going to try to push 5. To run through them real quick, and I hope I laid it out in the memo pretty well. Oh, by the way, I am not in Florida. That's from 2 months ago. I just thought I'd tell everybody. I'm not on the beach in a shirt and tie in Florida. But the first one We and others have found that the use of remote access on the Open Meetings Act, the virtual Zoom meetings have been so successful. Our local government wants to expand that out by basically deleting the requirement that there has to be a natural disaster declared. The Press Association is going to have some issues with that. I think this is an issue that needs a robust debate, and I don't know where it's going to end up, whether we're going to expand it some. But it needs a robust debate, and we're part of a coalition of local governments on it. The missing ingredient on this, which I'm going to help try to loop in, is I think this has a real access in terms of for the disability community, and that's the Press Association may try to take the high ground on this. They want everybody to show up at a meeting, which is often difficult for people at night or whatever. But that's where we're going to head out on that. The second bill I'm really excited about, and I've waited 9 years for this bill. It's coming from our local, from our Elder Law Section Council. Illinois has had its community spousal rates frozen since 2012, since the enactment of the SMART Act. So our community spouses, who's typically the person whose spouse has gone into a nursing home, the spouse that remaining in the home, his or her income and resources are limited under the 2012 laws, frozen. Literally every other state in the union matches the federal rate. Elder law sees no reason why our seniors, our community spouses, shouldn't be entitled to enjoy the same amount as any other community spouse in the country. I like the equity of that. ARP's on this bill. I'm excited about this bill. It's just the optics on it are great. The third bill is coming from our Family Law Section Council, and it's to create by statute, although a number of jurisdictions are doing it by rule. They want to have a statewide statute to allow for the appointment of parenting coordinators to basically off-ramp the low-grade garden variety visitation issues that judges, they think it'll get a quicker resolution and it'll free up judicial resources if we sort of off-ramp those into that. I'm not sure if that's going to run into any problems or not. Anymore, family law issues get, everybody gets a little suspicious of them in the legislature. Having said that, there were two late issues that came in on family law that I can personally consider to be kind of cleanup. The first one is we're reinstating language in the child support statute to ensure that you can make sure that an obligor is ensuring his or her life, so that if he or she dies, then the child support will continue, that they'll get child support. It was in the old statute when we did that huge rewrite in 2016. It got dropped. I'm positive that it wasn't dropped on purpose, but there was so much huge changes on that. This is not the first time we've seen some sort of glitch like that. This is a Maggie Bennett production, and I mean that positively, because she's already roped in HFS. They're on the bill. They're happy with it, and they're a huge stakeholder in the child support stuff. The final bill is also from family law. Under current law, a couple of appellate court cases, the judges are using what I call a procedural defense to not allow parties to argue and take the benefit of 50 years of change of circumstances law. So now if the obligor has a huge increase in income or a huge decrease, or something happens where in the old days, you could go in and argue a change of circumstances, the judge should adjust that. They're not doing it now because it said it was contemplated or it was foreseen. To be candid with you, I've had some very good family law lawyers. This is coming, the drafter is Arnold Blockman, a retired judge of Champaign County, who's head of their domestic relations division for 16 years. It's a little clunky grammatically and stylistically, and so we're in the process of cleaning it up, and I think we've got that done. There's not any substantive changes to it. We're just making it better, and I think in the draft we did here, it kind of conflated a factor, which is judge talk, judge statute and defenses for litigants, but it's not going to be any substantive change. And, we do that all the time in process. So I'll be happy to try to answer any of your questions. And if you have any, other than that, I would ask for a motion to approve the legislative packet as presented.
Moved.
Mm.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded, and we have a poll as to your vote. So we will share that now. Please vote.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I was wondering about that after I voted.
I apologize. You are absolutely correct. Kim, can we retract the vote and allow for discussion?
I think you can wait to see if there is any discussion.
Is there any discussion? Thank you, Mark, for that suggestion. Is there any discussion?
Please use your raised hand feature on Zoom so that Anna can see who would like to speak.
I see Sharon Eisman. Sharon, are you requesting to speak? Sharon Eisman?
I just am unmuted. Sorry about that. Jim,
That's okay.
I just had a question on the child support statute. With regard to, excuse me, I'm sorry, the one above that, the parenting coordinator statute. Is this just conflict in families where they're notified with regard to something happening at home? Or how is it that they're alerted that there's a conflict? And then what is the involvement, the extent of the involvement and authority to intervene?
Madam President, can I pitch that to Rory Weiler? I think he's more conversant with it than I am.
Absolutely. Rory, please go ahead.
Actually, this was the brainchild of Judge Dickler, who's the presiding judge of the family court in Cook. The idea is that there's a lot of little mini dramas that occur on a day-to-day basis that folks, instead of trying to resolve for themselves, have a tendency to bring to court. It clogs up the docket. It takes up judicial time. And it's the kind of thing that, frankly, the judges don't particularly care to deal with and shouldn't have to. So the idea of the parenting coordinator is that when these controversies present themselves in appropriate cases, the judge will make a decision exercising his or her discretion as to whether or not a parenting coordinator can effectively work with the parties so that the parties aren't running back and forth into court every other week. So to address the issue of how they get appointed, it's a judicial appointment. Sorry.
Hello.
Mute. So it's a judicial appointment and it's monitored by the court. There is not a fail-safe, but there is a procedure in the proposed statute that would enable the parties to go ahead and take the thing back to the judge. The hope, though, is that that will not occur all that frequently. So I don't know if that answers your question, Sharon, but that's the essence of how it came to be and how it's going to be implemented.
It does sound like a somewhat good idea, but will there be some supervision or oversight to assess whether this is effective and
that's the judge's
cost effective too? What?
Again, that's the judge's job. I see Mike Strauss has his hand up. Perhaps Mike wants to address it.
Mike, would you like to comment? You're still muted.
There you go. Sorry about that. I was just going to chime in that what it is arbitration. They act as an arbitrator. They meet with the parties. They make a ruling. If one or both don't like what they say, then you can go to court, but suffer the same penalties that you could under an arbitration. They can be appointed in an agreed court order, or a judge, as Rory said, could appoint them if they feel like it's appropriate. Many of the counties already, as I think you heard, have local rules that allow for this, but it's not codified across the state. And so that's what we're trying to do. That's all.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Thank you, Mike. Sharon, does that answer your questions?
Yes.
Thank you. I see Emily Sutton raised her hand. Emily?
I just wanted to mention that this isn't, parenting coordination is not a new concept. It's been in place for many years in Cook County. but also throughout the state and the nation, and frankly, the world. Canada is on the cutting edge of some of this parenting coordination work. So it's not something that Illinois has created. Florida has been doing it for many years. So it's not new, I guess is the point. So I know new things can be scary, but I don't think this is one of them.
Thank you. Julie Johnson.
Thank you, Madam President. I stand up in regard to the child support modification proposed legislation. In fact, I do think that I'm the minority opinion with regard to this, so I'll preface it with that. But I have voiced my concerns about this bill in front of the Family Law Section Council, and I will voice them now. The summary that was provided by Mr. Covington has omitted something that I think is important to understand. The proposed changes arising out of the Honorable Judge Blockman's language changes are a direct result of legislation that has arisen as a result of the statutory change from percentage of income child support to an income shares model. And what is happening right now is that a lot of payors, obligors for child support, are recognizing that the law as it's written doesn't afford them an opportunity to modify their support obligation, which they may perceive as more favorable to them under an income shares model than it may exist as a result of being previously entered under a percentage of income model, meaning they think they'll get a better deal under the new statute if the court takes into consideration other factors that weren't necessarily taken into consideration at the time their original support order was entered. More specifically, the other parent's income most of the time. So what we have seen is that there are a lot of attempts to motion up a modification of support, trying to get under that new statute, notwithstanding the legislature's clear admonishment to potential litigants not to modify, or that they cannot modify absent a substantial change of circumstances. What has happened as a result of these recent cases, and there are basically three that are the cause of this controversy now, is that the courts have stood firm against payors who are either similarly situated as they were before when the original child support order was entered, or better off financially than they were then, who are now seeking to reduce their support obligation to their children, which flies in the face of other 50-year-long case precedent, if we want to use that same allegory as Mr. Covington presented today, of that children have the right to benefit from the wealth of each parent, and children have the right to parity between the households of their parents. Now that's balanced with what already exists under law of a prevention of windfall, so that the defense in a modification where a judge might say, nope, I can't do this because these cases say an increase in income doesn't let me reduce your support obligation overall as a practical matter. The defense still exists under current law, but judge, the recipient spouse will now be receiving a windfall. So I do not think that the proposed changes, legislative changes that are on the package today, are going to do anything but enable payor spouses from essentially shorting their children the benefit of their increase in income. Now, some people have said to me, but it is being used against spouses, the recipient spouses as well. And frankly, I don't understand how that's even possible. If there's a reduction in income, that is still very much a change of circumstances that makes sense to modify support. If someone has a job change or a job loss, that is still very much a modification, substantial change of circumstances. But what is happening now, and I have multiple cases right now where we are duking it out over this issue, where a payor spouse whose income has increased substantially is trying to reduce their child support obligation for no other reason that then their spouse also has had an increase of income, or that both of them have had an increase of income. And that just doesn't make any sense to me, why the children wouldn't benefit from an overall increase in their support under those circumstances. The word substantial matters, and substantial under case law, as is represented in the 3 cases that I mentioned before that sort of spurred this legislative proposal change, plainly state that the word substantial has to, or the substantial change in circumstances must relate either to the needs of the children or the ability to pay. And that's really the essence of this. And the proposed legislative changes that are before us today do not cover that adequately. And if that's what Mr. Covington is talking about in terms of a cleanup to the language changes, okay. But as it exists today, we are setting children up to be shorted by their more than capable parent. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. So I see that Mike Strauss and Lisa Newley have raised their hands, and I would call on Mike first and then Lisa. And whoever's noise is being heard, if you could please mute your background. Thank you.
So first of all, I love Julie, so this does not come as any, personal attack or anything on her. The Family Law Section Council fully vetted this, including her comments, and I believe the vote on it was, if not unanimous, darn close. It is far more than 3 cases, as Julie said. In fact, there was one as recently as about 2.5 weeks ago out of Cook County that was relying on the same thing. But what has happened here, and the ridiculousness that started this whole thing, and I want to be real clear, is that somebody filed to modify support under the current laws. I know you're not all family law attorneys. Under the current law, it now takes into account both spouses or ex-spouses' incomes, where it didn't used to. And what was alleged is that the recipient spouse had gone from being unemployed to earning, I think, like 50, 60,000 a year. The notice to withhold, which is a form document where you just fill in the blanks, somewhere in there says you need to keep each other updated on your jobs and where you live. The court took that language and somehow took the astronomical leap that it was anticipated that this person would have a job because of that form language where you have to keep each other updated on your work, and therefore said, sorry, there's been no substantial change. In every single one of these cases, what should have happened and what would protect against what Julie's worried about is that the court had to make a finding there's been a substantial change, because anybody, including my 9-year-old son, can realize that in every single one of these cases, there has been a substantial change. But what the problem was is that once they make that finding, they have the right to then deviate and say, for instance, if someone's trying to use the new statute to get a lower amount to pay, you say, yes, there's been a substantial change, but you can still afford what you were paying, so we're deviating back to where you were. It does cut both ways. And I hear Julie say, well, I don't get how it could go against the recipient. I literally just had the case where the judge wouldn't even let us argue and said everything alleged was anticipated. Now, what was anticipated is that dad went from, I think, around 40% parenting time to 0, and both our incomes doubled. And the court said all those things were anticipated under this flurry of case law, therefore case dismissed. So my client could not get the increase. So I strongly disagree. This was strongly vetted. And frankly, if any of you had questions, there was a semi-hilarious yet fully factual articles written by both myself and Judge Blockman about all this case law and what has happened throughout the state. This change is necessary. It will stop these things from happening. And I strongly disagree with Julie that it'll allow people to run into court to get under the new law, because it doesn't allow for that. It doesn't give you that. You still need to show a substantial change. Thank you, Anna.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mike. Lisa?
I am raising my hand in lieu of Susan Rogaliner, who's trying to wave at you because she doesn't know how to use the raise hand feature. So she is the one who is trying to comment. If you would
Okay.
call on her.
Thank you, Lisa. Susan?
Thank you. I'm sorry, I was just outed. Anyway, I'm currently the chair of the Family Law Section Council. Mike is absolutely correct that this was fully vetted. This has been worked on for a long time. And this foreseeability issue that this new legislation would correct, which is fully endorsed by the Family Law Section Council, is kind of a separate issue from what we call the cliff issue, which has to do with the formula, the legislated child support formula, which is something that our maintenance subcommittee is currently working on and spending a great deal of time on, consulting with people from all over the country on, and doing a lot of math to make some changes, propose some changes in the child support legislation, the child support laws. So what this current legislation that we want taken and that you're voting on today is basically has to do with foreseeability, which runs into the child support calculation issue. However, it is separate, and it is important that this be presented. And so that I just want you to all to be aware that this is something that has been fully vetted and recommended by the Family Law Section Council. Thank you for your time on that.
Thank you, Susan. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? Jeffrey Luss, are you raising your hand to comment?
I was raising a question to ask if, aside from the fact that we already voted, is anybody making a motion to segregate this from the rest of the vote if we're going to do a revote?
So if I can actually explain or provide information. So we have two options: either proceed with the vote which was previously cast, or if we want to go to a revote, it requires announcements of the result of the prior vote, a motion to reconsider being made by someone who voted in favor of the original motion, then a motion and a discussion, and then a vote. And I see Mark Rouleau raising his hand. Mark?
Yes, I move that we consider the original vote to be our vote.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Let's give Kim Weaver a moment to prepare a poll on that.
Can you state exactly what this motion is?
Yes, it's the motion is to take the original vote that we had made before we went into discussion about the legislative packet as the vote of this body.
And the original motion was to approve the proposed legislative package.
The entire package, correct?
Yes.
How about a point of order? A point of order is we don't
Yes.
have motions to reaffirm our votes that we've already taken. It's redundant.
Yeah, I could have called the question, but I'd rather not. Okay.
However, there is a motion on the floor, so we will proceed with Mark's motion. Thank you all.
I think Dennis Bigler had his hand up.
Thank you, Sunny. Dennis, were you raising your hand?
I just thought that's how we were voting.
Thank you for that. We will actually share a poll shortly. And here it is. Please vote. Please take a moment to cast your vote. Your last opportunity. Please vote now. Thank you for casting your vote. Voting has now closed. And we will ask Kim Weaver to share the results of the poll.
The results should be showing. Do you see them?
No.
I saw it earlier, Madam President.
I see.
Yeah, it
Thank you.
passed significantly.
We saw the
Yeah,
results
it
of the
was-
vote, but not the
Yes,
results of the
82%.
original voting that took place.
So the results are, it passed 82% voting yes, 11% voting no, and 8% voting present.
Thank you for that. And I see Carl Draper has raised his hand, so please go ahead, Carl.
Thank you, Madam President. I would move, having voted on the prevailing side, that we reconsider the vote so that we can take an opportunity to consider the comments that were raised and have a vote that we have confidence was, contemplating all of the debate.
Thank you, Carl. A motion to reconsider has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on that motion? Hearing and seeing none, I will ask Kim Weaver to prepare a poll on a motion to reconsider. Please take a moment to vote on the motion to reconsider. If you have not yet cast your vote, please do so now. Please cast your vote.
Just want to give everybody one last opportunity. I'm showing not everybody has voted yet.
Please cast your vote.
Okay, we haven't had anybody for a couple seconds, so I'll stop it.
Thank you, Kim.
Ooh.
What a
You
close
can-
vote. Yeah.
You can all see, I think this is the closest result I have seen.
So I think
And the
you all
motion-
can see the percentages, correct?
Yes.
So the breakdown, just so you know, is 53 yes, 54 no, 13 present. So
We
those are
don't
the
know.
actual numbers.
The motion fails and the legislative package is approved as presented. Thank you all. On to agenda item 8, and I would like to invite retired Justice Lloyd Carmeier to present on behalf of Bench and Bar regarding proposed amendments to Supreme Court Rule 104.
Thank you, President Karlakowska and members of the Assembly for this opportunity to appear on behalf of Judge Deborah Walker, the Chair of Bench and Bar, and the entire Bench and Bar Section Council. The Bench and Bar Council is presenting a relatively simple and straightforward addition to Rule 104 to deal with the problem brought to our attention by Justice Michael Hyman, a member of the section, and is highlighted in an article that was co-authored by David Inlander and Ronald Mena Jr. that appeared in the June issue of the Illinois Bar Journal. The problem is ex parte communication that comes directly to a judge along with or as part of a cover letter or cover email forwarding actual pleadings or other documents which are in fact filed, but the cover letters are not. The memo that was prepared, I believe, by Krista Appenzeller adequately sets forth what's happened so far. We presented this to the Board of Governors and it unanimously recommended that it be considered by the Assembly. Our section council started with the proposition that every lawyer and judge knows or should know the prohibition on ex parte communications with a judge. We also understand that the judge has the power to sanction a lawyer making any such ex parte communications. But the advent of electronic filing and the forwarding of documents by email has made it easy to add comments to a transmission email that are unnecessary and may be inappropriate. We know that more thought goes into drafting and editing a letter, including reviewing and signing it before putting it in the mail. Not so with emails that may be dashed off without such additional review before hitting the send button. Additionally, many pro se litigants may not know the rules prohibiting ex parte communications in sending a pleading. We may not know whether the judge actually considered the ex parte comments or ignored the improper ex parte communication. And of course, the reviewing court presently has no way of even knowing that the communications were made. If the comments are filed and made part of the record, all parties and the judge will certainly know that the improper communication was made. So our proposal attempts to avoid making things more onerous for blameless lawyers, but getting the improper comment into the record makes everything available to all parties and to a reviewing court, which is not the case now. A possible added benefit of the proposed addition to the rule is it may help stifle the making of such ex parte comments. We are simply asking that any such comments or communication made directly to a judge may be filed and made part of the record. There's no requirement that they do so, but either a lawyer, litigant, clerk, or judge can simply put it in the record for all to see, and especially for a reviewing court. We're adding, what we propose is adding a new subparagraph E dealing with the ex parte comments and then a committee comment. Other than that, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions.
Thank you, Justice Carmeier. Are there any questions for Justice Carmeier? I see Bob Oleszkiewicz and then Raleigh Kaltfleisch. So
I'd
please
like
go
to
ahead,
second
Bob.
the motion if that was a motion by Justice Carmeyer.
Thank you,
I
Judge
don't like-
Slifer.
You know, I'm not a member of the assembly, so.
I make a motion.
Folks, why don't I recognize Bob Oleszkiewicz first, since he was in the lineup. Bob?
Thank you, Anna. Good to see you, Justice Carmeyer.
Good to see you, Bob.
I just, so I'm Bob Oleszkiewicz from Cook County. I don't know if I fully understand this, but what I guess my concern is, let's say a judge decides not to put this in the official record. Is that judge, could that judge be disciplined? I mean, could someone say they should have put it in and they didn't put it in? And kind of open themselves up for like a charge?
The proposal in the rule is a may, and that's one of the reasons why we didn't make it a shall. The shall puts a duty on somebody, either the judge, the other lawyer or litigant, or maybe a clerk, put it in the record. Our concern here is that, and we really don't know whether the judge actually even considered the ex parte communication. And of course, if it's part of the record, it would be fairly easy for the judge to indicate, I didn't take it into consideration. I ignored it. I put it aside. I saw it was there, and that's it. No, I don't think it would lead to any additional possible repercussions or reprimands to a judge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Justice. Raleigh?
I am from the 18th Judicial Circuit, and I guess I have a couple of comments about this. I practice primarily in the family law sector, and we have a significant number of pro litigants. And more often than not, they just send whatever they'd like to the court. Sometimes they copy the attorneys, sometimes they don't copy the attorneys. Of the things that they just transmit to the court are confidential things that we might not otherwise send in as an attorney, things that are identifying birthday, social security numbers, information like that. And, you know, the justice here has, had that the pro se's may do this, but pro se litigants are required to act as attorneys, know the rules, know the laws if they're going to represent themselves. And so I think that there should be something put in the new statute, the new rules that requires that the pro se litigants, I guess, be treated the same way as the attorneys are, such that there would be an admonishment for a sanction. I mean, I would count on lawyers not sending ex parte communications to the court on purpose. But I think that we need to address the significant increase in the number of pro se litigants and make sure that they are held to the same standard. And I guess my other concern too is that while I understand the language is that the court may put these comments into the record, is going to be a knee-jerk reaction, and a judge is always going to err on the side of, I'm going to put this in the record, and just because I want to make sure it's all in the record. And I don't know how useful that will be ultimately to a litigant on appeal, because if the appellate court is looking at everything, they might be considering something that is not necessarily relevant to the underlying case. And so those were just my thoughts, and I thank you for your time today.
Yeah, I don't disagree that there may be some irrelevant things that get in. Sitting on the court, I found that was true anyway. Sometimes there were some irrelevant things that were presented as part of a record. With regard to treating the pro se's as any other lawyer, there's nothing in here that changes whatever the rules are now and the requirements. The idea when we drafted this, and we had, I think, unanimous approval by the Bench and Bar Section Council, as well as by the Board of Governors, was not to make it more onerous on other lawyers who are abiding by the rules. This was just, and if you look at the article from David Inlander and Ronald Mena Jr., I think as there were, for instances there, and most of the comments that were concerning came from lawyers, as a matter of fact, and were just added on to emails as an afterthought, and maybe without any thought that this is simply is not an ex parte communication. I'm not sure about that. But again, the purpose of making the rule a may is not to add a burden, but to allow it to get before everyone.
Thank you, Justice. I will call on the following speakers in this order: Sharon Eisman, then Sunny Williams, then Michael Bergman, then Mark Vujicic. Sharon, please go ahead.
Based on what the discussion has been, I continue to have this concern about if there is a concern of regarding ex parte communications via that type of communication. I'm not sure why it wouldn't be a requirement rather than a discretionary determination when they get in, could be in the record or not in the record. So I'm wondering if the committee that looked at this problem considered making it mandatory. And if you did and chose not to, why? Why not?
The committee did look at whether it should be made mandatory, and we determined that ex parte communications, of course, the judge can deal with it, or should, if it is an improper ex parte communication, if it crosses the line. We again decided that in crafting the rule, we didn't want to put additional burdens on people who were not, or who were in fact blameless and not contributing to the problem. That was our thinking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. Sunny?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. So, thank you, Justice Carmeier, for their presentation. And, again, I think with the e-filing and with a lot of the scheduling, we have parties who email, and that's what sometimes you have to schedule, your hearing through via email. And there are cases where, judges want to be included in those emails. And, this addresses the relevant issue that judges face, and it is well needed. I think there are, the concerns were addressed by Justice Carmeier regarding that, and there's actually an ARDC. I think it was a final decision on a case where an attorney kept, emailing both parties, including the judges, writing disparaging comments about the judge. And so those are the things that should come into record. And obviously it did end up resulting in a discipline, but it is well needed in this time. So with that, I make a motion to approve the amendment to Rule 104.
Sunny, would that thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. Michael Bergman for discussion.
I was seeking the opportunity to speak in order to make the motion or to second the motion, as it were. So I am fully in support of the recommended action and am vice chair of the Bench and Bar Section Council and appreciate all of Justice Carmeier's work with the committee on this.
Thank you. Mark Vujicic.
Dziękuję. Justice Carmeier, thank you for the presentation. It sounds like a great bill. From the permissive nature of the language, would it be fair to assume that if something was confidential that should be redacted before it's put into the record, that the rule would allow that flexibility?
As I indicated in another comment, we're not trying to change anything else that's happening now or is a rule now, and that would include what you just alluded to. Certainly, if there were things that the clerk should not have in the record, those shouldn't be added. And that's why, again, it's a may
Thank you.
as opposed to a shall. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice. Sharon Eisman, I see your hand raised. Is that an additional comment or is this a leftover from the prior comment? Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments or discussion on this motion? Michael Cortina, please go ahead.
Thank you. Call the question.
We will share the poll. Thank you. Please go ahead and cast your vote. Please go ahead and cast your vote. Please go ahead and cast your vote if you have not yet done so.
I believe that voting has finished and that the results are showing.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. For whatever reason, I do not see the results on my screen. So thank you for the assist.
86% in favor, 9% opposed. Madam
Thank you
President,
very
will the minutes contain percentages or the actual vote totals?
We can include both.
The minutes just show whether it passed or not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Carmeier, for your presentation today, and please express our thanks to Bench and Bar for their work on this issue.
Thank you. I'll do that. I'll have to say that in my past 16 years on the court, I've never had to answer so many questions, but I certainly appreciated the questions and comments. And I've got one other thing I just want to share with you. I don't know if this will show up or not. No, it won't. Maybe it will. Maybe Sonny would
Unfortunately, no.
recognize. No, okay. But thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And I take it
You're
now
very
this will be forwarded on to the Supreme Court with a recommendation that it be considered.
Of course. Thank you, Justice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we would normally be scheduled to address item number 9, but we will skip to number 12 and call on Lisa Newley, president of the Illinois Bar Foundation, for her remarks on behalf of the IBF. Thank you.
Thank you, President Krolikowska and members of the Assembly. I appreciate the opportunity to address you today on behalf of the Illinois Bar Foundation. I have basically 3 things that I want to tell you about today. The first is a name change. Our Fellows program is forever going forward, well, at least immediately forever, going to be known as the Champions program. And in case you're wondering why we're making that change, I think there's 3 main reasons. Number 1 is that the IBF has 2 other programs already where we refer to members as fellows or participants as fellows, and having a total of 3 can make things somewhat confusing. The second reason is because just the word fellows is really outdated at this point. It's commonly associated with a man. And I think that Champions is really more inclusive to all participants in the program. Also, I think Champions is a positive and somewhat exciting word that brings together what we're trying to accomplish on behalf of access to justice and assistance for attorneys. If you think about the donations that you're making and the support that you're giving the foundation, I think being a champion really is a more positive feeling and something that everyone should want to strive for. And hopefully you all will. And I will say that many of you have, and I thank you for that. As you may recall, during President Orsi's tenure, we came before you and we're seeking substantial participation in the program from members of the Assembly. At this point, we do have 113 champions of the Assembly out of 178 of you. So I thank you for that. You're not done yet. Hopefully you will still want to continue to donate. And we have also begun a champion liaison program with the sections and committees of the ISBA, where we have asked ambassadors of the champions to who are already members of the section councils or the committees to speak to each of their respective sections and committees to try to bring the foundation a little closer to you so that you can understand what the foundation does, how the foundation helps both the community at large and lawyers as well. During this mid-year meeting, many of the ambassadors and liaisons may have spoken to their committees and section councils already about the program and encouraged you to consider becoming a champion or increasing your pledge to become a different level of champion. It's really easy to do. We've told you how to do it before. The Champions program is a pledge where you're paying for 10 years, as little as $100 a year, anywhere up to $2,500 a year. At different levels, you're recognized in different ways. And really all of it is for an ongoing support of what the foundation does. So speaking of what the foundation does, the foundation this winter is taking the opportunity, since we aren't getting together in person, to do some strategic planning. And we're very excited about the opportunity to do this. The IBF is going to have strategic planning in order to help the board members hone in on how to best serve our mission for the IBF, as well as ensure that we're forming strong and lasting partnerships with our supporters, with our donors, with the ISBA, and the other organizations that we engage with regularly. So I don't want to take a bunch of time. I'm always happy to talk about the foundation. I'm happy to talk about our programs. I think that we've been very effective during the pandemic. We've managed to make some grants, keep sustaining the ones that we had made previously, and we've helped an entire new batch of attorneys who needed help through COVID assistance funds. We've been very lucky along the way. A couple of dates that I do want to mention that are coming up. First, we are planning at this point to have our recognition reception for past President Dennis Orsi in Collinsville on March 10th of 2022. More on that to come. Also, our 2021 gala, which was supposed to be held in October at the Four Seasons, will now be held on May 20th of 2022 at the Four Seasons in Chicago, and our honoree is Tim Eaton. Tim has been such a trooper with regard to his position as our honoree, as we've had to push this out twice, but we're really looking forward to being able to have this gala. Also, we are planning to have the 2022 gala, as it should have been in October, or I'm sorry, on October 16th of 2022. But it will be slightly reimagined, as Anna alluded to early on. We're going to have it at a different location. It's going to have a few changes with a slightly different feel so that Well, we really want to entice you to attend, even though it seems like a lot to attend 2 galas maybe. It'll be fun both times and it'll be different. And so please put the dates on your calendar. Please continue your support of this, of the foundation and access to justice. And on behalf of the entire IBF, I wish you all a happy holiday and we'll see you in 2022. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you, Lisa, for your presentation today and for the important work that you, the IBF board and the IBF continue to do every day to help attorneys and their families in our communities. If you wouldn't mind inserting those dates into the chat so that people can see them. Thank you very much. Now back to agenda item 9, I would like to call on Emily Masalski, Vice Chair of Civil Practice Section Council, to present the resolution and request assembly approval. Emily.
Thank you, Madam President. Everyone, my name is Emily Masalski and I am the Vice Chair of the Civil Practice Section Council. And our dear Chair, David Wader, is in a deposition, so I have the privilege of addressing you all tonight. The page 33 of the joint assembly packet has the resolution that we're hoping the assembly will approve. It urges the ISBA to adopt a position that it's our policy that would allow remote video hearings as a permanent feature of court operations for the court system. This would be included for routine motions, status hearings, and case management hearings. The resolution also requests that ISBA adopt a position that parties should be allowed to stipulate to conduct hearings, both evidentiary and non-evidentiary hearings by remote video, but it's not mandatory. The third prong of the resolution is that we urge the courts to consider many issues facing individuals with disabilities and other limitations on remote access. This is something that we heard about earlier today from Jim Covington with respect to the Open Meetings Act. And the fourth prong is that the ISBA take a position that we proactively urge the court to continue to review technological changes in the hope that we can continue to advance, not just in times of a pandemic. And I am available for any questions. I note that my fellow assembly members, Mark Rouleau, and a few others are also on civil practice and have helped with this resolution.
Thank you, Emily. Is there a motion?
Motion
So
to
moved.
approve. Yep. Second.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, we will prepare and share a poll requesting your vote. Please go ahead and vote. Please take the opportunity to cast your vote. Voting is about to close. And Kim Weaver will go ahead and share the results. Thank you, Kim. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the Civil Practice Committee. Now on to agenda item 10. I would like to announce that one nomination was received for each vacancy, one cook and one outside of cook for the ABA House of Delegates under 35. Marjorie Kennedy of Chicago and Gregory Murdoch of Springfield are thereby elected as under 35 delegates to the ABA House of Delegates. congratulations to them, and we would like to thank them for their service. Now on to agenda item 11, Assembly Finance Committee. I would like to call on Carl Draper, Chair, Assembly Finance Committee, to introduce audit presentation and financial report. Carl?
Thank you very much, Madam President. It's a pleasure to be here and to again be presenting a very optimistic financial report on behalf of the Assembly Finance Committee. I want to thank the President for the appointment to this. And as a point of personal privilege, this is the last report that I get to make on the Assembly Finance Committee because I'll be term limited and we'll have been happy to do this for a number of years. This report comes by virtue of the obligation to obtain an independent financial audit of the Assembly of the Association's finances that be presented to the Board of Governors Budget and Audit Committee, who also have participated in reaching this report to present. I want to thank the members of the Assembly Finance Committee. And in particular, I want to thank Dennis Archer and the staff who have worked very hard to make sure that our financial reports are professionally prepared and presented in an understandable fashion. And I know there'll be thanks from our auditors, the CPA firm of Eck, Schaefer, and Punk, who work with Dennis and his staff in reviewing the financial reports and doing the audit functions. We'll get a report in just a moment from Jim Hogue on those points. The highlights of the reports that have been given to you are that, again, we received a clean audit report. There were no significant findings. And in fact, I think the report will be that the process for this went remarkably smoothly given the restrictions that we have because of the COVID difficult working conditions. I want to call attention to you to one of the items in the supporting reports. There was a one-page, 8-year running summary analyzing the revenue and expenses of the association. This gives you the easiest snapshot to see how we have progressed across the last 8 years. Our change in net assets in all but one of those years, which was 7 years ago, have constantly improved. We've seen some very, very significant improvements in our financial position. A large part of that strength comes from two sources. One, the loyalty of our members who continue to renew. That's our main source of revenue. We have, of course, faced some real challenges because of COVID, and those have forced us to curtail a lot of expenses, travel for business meetings being one of the large items that shows up in this. But we also have the benefit of some very significant unrealized and some realized gains because of the changing conditions of our investments in the marketplace. Those are very fortunate for us and for anybody who has some investments that have grown. Those are given some very careful attention, and I think we should thank the board investment committee that monitors that and sets the policy for prudent investment for the benefit of the association. The key thing you'll see from the financial reports are that COVID again had a significant impact on our expenses, but our revenues stayed very solid, with expenses remaining relatively flat. So I want to invite you to pay attention to Jim Hogue. I want to acknowledge and recognize here to present some of the significant findings from the financial reports for your consideration. And after that, we'll take any questions. So Jim, if you're available, thank you for joining us today.
Okay, thank you, Carl. So my name is Jim Hogue. I'm a partner with Eck, Schaefer, and Punk. And as Carl said, we performed the audit of your association for the fiscal year ended June 30 of 2021. And what I'm here is to just talk briefly about the audit process, hit the highlights, and answer any questions. And really, Carl's opening remarks were spot on. and he really kind of hit many of the areas I was going to cover. So this may make it even a little bit quicker. So in a brief summary of the audit process, the audit went smooth. We were able to do your audit on site. You know, in the COVID state that we're in right now, it's been a client by client situation or decision by the client. You preferred that we be on site. That was our preference as well. And so we were able to perform our audit procedures in your Springfield office and completed everything very efficiently. Dennis, Paula, and the entire staff were very helpful, got us in on really the timeline that we expected to be wrapped up. And again, in the COVID world, we've been seeing a lot of delays and a lot of inefficiencies in our audit. And it was nice to have this audit go according to the timeline that it usually does. Also, as Carl said, we did not observe any deficiencies, and what we're speaking to when we say that, in addition to looking at your numbers, making sure they're presented in accordance with GAAP, and auditing the supporting documentation for those underlying numbers, we're also looking at your internal controls. And are your procedures adequate for your association, and are they operating effectively? As we performed our work, we did not observe any deficiencies in your procedures, and as such, we didn't issue a management letter or a findings letter. As you look at the financial statements, really the two things I would hit on are the statement of financial position and a statement of activities. And as you look at both of those statements, what you will see is that the association had a very strong operating year. And really, as we look at this, and that 8-year analysis that Carl referred to is a nice snapshot, because it breaks up your operations during each of the last 8 years between your operating type activities and your investment type activities. And what you see as you look at that is you had an incredibly strong operating year in addition to a strong investment year. So the stock market was good to you, but your operations were very strong as well. And that got you combined to a net income this year of just under 3.4 million. So a pretty significant increase in your net position and in your financial position this year, driven by the investment market as well as your operations. And as you look at that 8-year analysis, what you're going to see is your revenue line item continues to hold steady. Your membership had a slight increase this year, which was nice to see. And the dues income was up just a bit. And your other revenue line items held pretty steady, but you see a pretty significant decrease in your expenses, largely driven by your sections and committee expenses being significantly down, as many of those or all of those were held remotely. So you didn't have the related travel expenses related to those sections and committees. And also you see the impact in your expenses of not having a mid-year live meeting nor a live annual meeting. So as you look at those areas of expenses that you typically have in a year like fiscal year 21, where many of those events didn't occur or they occurred remotely, there's a pretty significant decrease of the expenses that go along with that. And so with revenues holding its own, with expenses down a little bit and the investment activity up so much, you really see a strong net income this year. Where that lands at in your balance sheet is a pretty significant increase in both your cash, reflected in the increase in operations, and your investments due to the market value. And that's really as deep as I would like to go into the financials, but happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much, Jim.
No, wait a minute.
There are questions.
Are there?
Hang on just a moment. There are questions.
I was just going to say, if there were questions, we're probably ready to start addressing those.
So
There was
I
a
see-
question on chat about the 8-year summary. I apologize. I didn't make sure that that got included in your materials, and I'm checking with staff on the easiest way to distribute that.
Thank you, Carl. As you're doing that, I see Sharon Eisman and Bob Oleszkiewicz have raised their hands. So Sharon, why don't you go ahead first?
Thank you, Madam President. I had a number of questions about the numbers, and I was impressed with it. It's very positive, but I had some concerns and questions about what this means going forward for the Bar Association and its membership, and any patterns we may see. And so I had a fairly meaningful conversation with Dennis Archer before the beginning of our assembly meeting. And I had thought that he was going to make some comments and would share with you all what he shared with me. And I would prefer not to, because I had so many different questions, but they were all connected. I think it would be a time saver if he were present and he were able to kind of give an overview and his perspective about the questions I asked, because I do think it's important as assembly members that we look at these figures and try to discern what they mean for us to stay as a healthy bar association. So is Dennis available?
Thank you,
Can everyone
Sharon.
hear me? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, President Krolakowska. I met with Sharon earlier before the meeting and answered some questions in depth, but just wanted to pass on some of the main themes of where our finances are at, especially as they relate to COVID, because COVID has had a huge impact on everyone, and talked about really 3 areas: dues, travel, and staff salaries. From a dues standpoint, as Jim just mentioned, we had an uptick in our dues revenue, which has been a strong proponent of, it represents close to 80% of our revenue. And it was much higher than we budgeted for because we tried to stay conservative. And I know Jim had told us that other associations that they have audited have not fared as well. So that's something we're going to continue to monitor. That is why we came up with the COVID credit that we presented this last fiscal year to help out members in this time. And I would tell you a real quick thing is to note that COVID credit really helped the Illinois Bar Foundation getting a record number of dues checkoffs, as a lot of people put that money towards the Illinois Bar Foundation. So our dues are strong. From a travels perspective, the best way I can tell you that it really impacted our financials is when you look at the ones that we produce and you go down through our expense sections. Administrative, there's staff travel. In general meetings, that's where we have our board of governors meetings travel. That's where we have our annual mid-year. That's where we have ABA related travel. And then I think everyone's familiar with committee and section expense is predominantly travel related. So to give you an idea of that, I would just take a second and tell you, here's how few or less in expenses we had in these sections than we would normally do if it was pre-COVID. $80,000 less in staff travel, $360,000 less in general meetings and travel because we didn't have that annual and mid-year. The Board of Governors met virtual as well. $145,000 less in section travel, $300,000 less in committee travel. And those numbers total to $885,000 less in travel related expenses due to the pandemic. The other issue that you would see that I spoke with Sharon about was from a staffing salaries perspective. If you would look at our financials, you see there's a negative variance, which means we spent more than the budgeted amount. Where that comes to do is, as with COVID, we're seeing turnover even at the Bar Association. And in order to retain quality staff, we have to pay market salaries. And one of the things we did with COVID, we had to do a right sizing where we laid off 2 employees. So we had fair severance packages to them. We had PTO payouts. And one of the other things is with CLE being all electronic and no live, it actually almost cost us more to produce CLE electronically. We had to add some staff related to CLE just because of the vendor that we use are passing on some of that labor related to us. But as I told Sharon, these are things that all the other bar associations are dealing with. We're very fortunate to have the membership base we have, to have the financials that we have, not just in terms of long-term reserves, but we've been able to position some emergency cash that we can address issues like getting a new association management system, doing things to increase member benefits. And we have other things like doing the membership appreciation receptions that we're going to do, having the DEI initiative. Those are all things that we are positioned well to take on, not to mention, or also to mention, a Board of Governors new strategic plan that we'll have initiatives coming from as well. So we're positioned well financially. That is a strength that we have because of the membership that we have and outstanding staff that we have in terms of being a good steward of membership and the members' dollars.
Thank you, Dennis.
Yes.
And thank you to your staff for all of the work that you do for our association. And I apologize, there seemed to have been a feedback. So thank you, Dennis, and your staff for the important work that you continue to do for our association. I see raised hands of Bob Oleszkiewicz and then Rory Weiler. Bob Oleszkiewicz.
Yeah, thank you, Anna. Dennis answered most of the questions that I had. I was just concerned that I assume the budget committee and everybody's kind of thinking about going forward. And when we go back live, we're going to have additional expenses, and it sounds like they have that on board. So that was my question. And it's been answered. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. President-elect Rory Weiler.
Thank you, President Krolikowska. I was just going to mention when the question was raised, where do we go from here? Well, this is the audit of where we've been. The Budget and Audit Committee is meeting and is considering just exactly that question. And as it does every annual meeting, the Assembly will have an opportunity to see the recommended budget and ask questions about what's going to happen in the future. And I hope that we'll have some good answers for you.
Thank you, President-elect Weiler. Now, is there a motion that is being contemplated at this time?
Can I have, whoa.
Sharon, I see your raised hand. We can also have additional discussion once there is a motion. Please go ahead.
Yes, then I move that we approve the budget and the financial report as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I would second that, assuming that we're talking about the audit as presented, because again, this isn't really the budget.
Thank you for the correction. I accept it.
Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded. I see Mark Rouleau who is raising his hand.
That's fine. I got to lower.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, yes.
Go ahead.
One of the items that I explored a bit with Dennis, I would like him to, or maybe I can just try to synthesize it, is the going forward piece of it. Because one of the things that came out of the pandemic in terms of doing remote meetings is that more people were attending meetings than in the past. So it's about more than just the finances. It's how are we going to kind of balance the different interests of the members. And it may be that sometimes remote participation might be the best way to communicate, or there could be what we've seen as hybrid kinds of communications in other organizations, so that so the members that benefited from, who are long distance, and even though expenses can be handled by the Bar Association, travel is sometimes a challenge for people who have families or who would have to take time off work and would lose billable time. And if they had an option to participate remotely, that would be a benefit to them. So what I'm hoping is that we can take out of the trauma and the challenge that we all had to struggle with and face and resolve to some extent, and look at what some of the benefits might have been that we can carry over with it, while we're also looking forward to in-person communications.
Thank you, Sharon.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Mary Milano?
Am I unmuted?
You are now, yes.
This follows, I think, Sharon, but I just would hope that as we move forward, we keep in mind that there is not a one size fits all, and that the benefits of the remote operations, which we have all seen in terms of participation and cost both, not be seen to preclude other options in the mix. And those options which allow us to interact not only for the fun stuff, as you call it, President, which is great, but also for some of the more meaningful professional dialogue that we've been able to enjoy in the past. And I'm confident that we can see those options and a good mixture as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Milano. Are there any further comments or discussion, or shall we call for a vote?
Call for a vote.
And I see no raised hands and no one speaking up in order to further discuss. Therefore, we will go ahead and share the poll. Please cast your vote.
We don't have a vote. Oh, there it is.
There it is. Please go ahead and vote. If you have not yet done so, please go ahead and vote. This is your last opportunity. Please go ahead and vote. The voting is now closed, and we will go ahead and share the results shortly. And the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Carl, Dennis, and Mr. Hoag. On to agenda item 13. We have before us two resolutions. The first one is in celebration of the 100th anniversary of the Justinian Society of Lawyers. Whereas the Justinian Society of Lawyers was born out of a meeting of Chicago's approximately 40 lawyers of Italian descent on October 17, 1921. Whereas the Justinian Society of Lawyers benefits the Illinois legal community through its mission to foster a spirit of collegiality through social and professional events, promote the professionalism of its members, and participate in civic and community affairs so as to ensure the enduring respect of the legal system. Whereas the Justinian Society of Lawyers furthers the public good via its endowment fund, which has a mission to contribute positively to the community by supporting young people aspiring to practice law and by providing for children in need. Whereas the Justinian Society of Lawyers has contributed immeasurably to the work of the organized bar in the state of Illinois. Whereas a significant number of members of the Justinian Society of Lawyers have been very active in the Illinois State Bar Association, and a number of them have served with distinction as president of the Illinois State Bar Association, including but not limited to Lawrence Pasateri, Michael Kosha, Leonard Amari, Cheryl Nero, Joseph Bisaglia, John Locallo, Richard Felice, and Umberto Davi. Whereas the Justinian Society of Lawyers has enriched the Illinois legal community through its members' diverse backgrounds and viewpoints. Whereas on October 21st, 2021, the Justinian Society of Lawyers will gather to officially celebrate its 100th anniversary. Therefore, be it resolved that the Illinois State Bar Association hereby applauds and congratulates the Justinian Society of Lawyers on the celebration of its 100th anniversary, and further, that a copy of this resolution will be suitably framed and formally presented to the Justinian Society of Lawyers.
So moved with an amendment to add the signature of the president and the secretary to the resolution.
Second.
Thank you, Stephen Comey. Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Any abstaining? Hearing none. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone. On to our resolution celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Illinois Judges Association. Whereas the Illinois Judges Association was established on December 4th, 1971, and celebrated its 50th anniversary on December 4th, 2021. Whereas the Illinois Judges Association's benefits the Illinois legal community through its mission to support judicial excellence and professional development and judicial education, foster public confidence in an independent judiciary, work to preserve the independence of the judiciary by educating the public and students, and promote a diverse judiciary that administers justice in a fair and impartial court system. Whereas the Illinois Judges Association benefits Illinois citizens through its in-school educational programs, which have been retooled with or into a various virtual format that makes it easier for judges across the state to participate, especially benefiting counties with a limited number of judges. Whereas the Illinois Judges Association has recently launched a pro bono program in conjunction with the Public Interest Law Initiative, chaired by Supreme Court Justice Thomas Kilbride, retired, and Honorable Julie Katz, that aims to train retired judges to do more pro bono work and to show sitting judges how they can support pro bono activities. Whereas the Illinois Judges Association is currently led by longtime ISBA member, Honorable Barbara Crowder, retired, who currently serves as the 50th president and is the association's 10th female president. Whereas for the past 35 years, the Illinois Judges Association has joined the ISBA in planning, organizing, and holding the two associations' joint mid-year meeting. Therefore, be it resolved that the Illinois State Bar Association hereby applauds and congratulates the Illinois Judges Association on the celebration of its 50th anniversary. And further, that a copy of this resolution will be suitably framed and formally presented to the Illinois Judges Association. Thank you. If I could invite a motion.
So move to adopt.
Motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion has been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none. Any abstaining? Hearing none. Motion carries unanimously. I would like to point out that there are some informational reports attached, including the Lawyers Trust Fund and an elections update. And please note that the next meeting of the Assembly is scheduled for Friday, June 10th at the Grand Geneva in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And on that note, I would
Madam
like
President?
to. Yes, Mr. Bucci, please go ahead.
I wanted to point out that today is the 73rd anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, a document adopted by the UN General Assembly on December 10th, 1948, a fundamental document that provides that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, something our association stands for, your presidency stands for, this assembly stands for, and that we should take note of this upcoming 75th anniversary and plan some activities around that important anniversary.
Thank you, Mr. Vucic. We appreciate you sharing that.
Dziękuję pięknie.
You're very welcome. I hope everyone that you and your families have a wonderful holiday season, and I will look forward to seeing you in 2022. Be well, everyone.
Thank you, Anna.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Anna.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Thanks, Anna.
Happy holidays. Thank you, Anna.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you, Anna.
Happy holidays.
Have a wonderful time.
Happy
And see
holidays.
everybody at Lake Geneva in person.
Yes, yay. Why is my thing not working?
Why can't I get out?
Anna, I hope you're able to put together a president's dinner with the CBA between now and June. It would be really wonderful.
I hope so too. And we are certainly planning additional programming for spring.
Well, good. We need to spend time together. Merry Christmas, Anna. Have a good one.
Thank you too, Steve.